Finding your favourite photography subject can be so difficult as a beginner. Finding your favourite photography subject and finding your feet when you're a beginner photographer can be extremely difficult. So if you want some hints and tips on how to create some great landscape photographs and pick out your favourite shots from your countryside photography, then continue watching and I'll give you 7 great ideas. Tip number 1 is all about equipment. And when I talk about equipment, I'm not referring to the actual camera body itself, but more about the lens that we're using. When you're trying to take photographs of the wider surrounding area, such as your true landscape photography, you want to be using a wider angle lens. So something that starts off from 10mm going upwards. If, like me, you prefer to take more intricate shots, then you might prefer to use a 50mm lens. Technically, you can also take with you a 70 to 200mm lens or an 85mm prime lens. Those two will also enable you to take photographs, but you will not be able to capture the wider landscape in them. Tip number 2 is all about looking for light. Now, sometimes we can be absolutely blessed, like we are today, with some fantastic weather outside. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we've got great light. The thing I love about outside photography, especially being in the countryside and the woodlands, is the way that you can see this through some of the shots I've taken before, where light is filtered through from the tree canopies down to the ground and has illuminated some of the beautiful flowers on the floor. Additionally, if you are taking country or landscape shots during the winter and spring months, on those cold frosty mornings you'll find that the sun really glares through those trees and creates that mystical, angelic kind of look. Tip number 3 is all about animals. Now, I absolutely love springtime and summertime where you get the young animals out in the countryside, especially animals such as lambs, calves, baby horses, bees, insects, dragonflies, anything like that. Now, obviously, if you've got a wider angle camera lens, it's going to be more difficult to get those detailed shots, hence why I often use the 50mm lens. But just be wary if you are going to take photographs of animals that A, you don't disturb them from their natural habitat, but also if you're walking around with a dog, make sure it's on a lead, and also stick to footpaths and bridleways as well. Tip number 4 is all about lines. Now, we are so used to horizontal lines when it comes to landscape photography, but actually when you are out in the countryside, there are plenty of vertical lines to look for as well. Take a look when you're walking around at the trees, at the plants, at the pathways, the fence lines, and you'll start to notice straight away that there are plenty of lines already in place. In addition, or to accompany that, think about the rule of thirds as well and combine the two together. Tip number 5 is all about thinking about your foreground and your background. Typically, when we take a landscape photograph, we have one main subject, and that's just the area that you're looking at. Or perhaps you've just got a tree that's stood in the middle of a field, and that's your sole subject. When it comes to making your photography more arty, what you can do is you can put items in the foreground of your photography. And that means placing the camera closer to a tree or a plant, something that's got a little bit of colour just in the corner or to the side that makes it blurred. And then in the background you've got your real true subject. Tip number 6 is all about where you're standing. If, like me, you like your landscape shots as well as your countrywide shots, it's quite easy to stand where everyone else has stood and take the same photo as everyone else as well. So if you do have the opportunity to find an area or a location that's higher or perhaps lower than the standard view, then go and walk down there and take a look. Sometimes they do create a more arty photograph. Tip number 7 is really a common sense tip, especially when you're going for long walks in the countryside and taking your camera with you. First of all, make sure you take some water with you. You can see I've got this bottle here. I love this bottle because it's got a loop or a hook that you can attach it to your camera bag. Second part of this is take snacks. You never know when you're going to get hungry. Make sure you have sturdy footwear. Make sure you bring a bag as well to put your camera in. Knowing our luck, especially here in the UK, you end up with a beautiful day like it is now, only to find that it clouds over and it starts pouring down with rain. You don't want to ruin your camera equipment. And finally, make sure you wear layers as well, if you can. And by layers I mean take a coat, a light jacket, a jumper of some kind that you can tie around the waist. Because again, if you do get stuck out in the cold or in the pouring rain, there's nothing worse than just wearing a t-shirt and feeling super cold. So if you like these tips, then do feel free to click the like button. And also, if you've got any comments for any fellow photographers, make sure you type them down below. If you've got any hints, tips, or perhaps reasons why you love countryside and landscape photography. Thanks for watching.